Hey, extension friends, Nate Birt, NTAE Key Informant. So, in today's video, I wanted to just give a few thoughts around this idea of getting out of a corner. So, I'm recording this in September of 2025. And look, there are a lot of organizations, educators at academic institutions, nonprofit leaders who are sort of in a, sometimes find themselves in a difficult situation. Maybe it's like a program they've been leading and suddenly a big change is necessary or something unexpected happens. If you think about a funding context, sometimes there's like, hey, look, to do this program right, we're going to need to raise this amount of money in this short of time period. And whether it's funding or programmatic or something else entirely, being in a corner is often not fun, right? It sort of raises your hackles. It makes you maybe fearful or scared or unsure, unclear about things or where to go. And so the purpose of this video is simply to say, hey, this happens to all leaders, whether you're in extension or somewhere else. And there are ways to sort of begin getting comfortable with that and then finding your way out of the corner. So let's jump ahead to the next slide. And, I read a book recently that sort of had a pretty profound impact on how I'm thinking about creativity, imagination, coming up with creative strategies that I hadn't previously considered. And I listed it here. It's called How to Think Like Einstein by Scott Thorpe. So the book is about a decade old, but for me personally, it resonated on a couple of levels. One, the writing is engaging, very practical, and a little playful, which I find that some business books are helpful, but kind of boring, frankly. They put me to sleep. And this one really didn't do that. I also like the fact that this book uses a lot of actual direct quotes from Albert Einstein, who is obviously included in the title and sort of core to the storytelling. But it's all very practical, like, different strategies, different mind games you can play with yourself to take a really hairy situation and find your way out of it. Or even just like practical day-to-day things, like how to think differently, how to do things more efficiently or have more fun with them, or whatever the case might be, whatever you're optimizing for, including getting out of a corner. I think that book is a great resource. That said, you may not be a big book reader, right? There are so many great podcasts, audiobooks, YouTube videos out there. And so, whenever you find yourself in a situation where it's like, I got to get out now, or I got to figure this out, recognize that, again, with some exceptions, with rare exception, let's say, hopefully you don't have to solve this problem in 24 hours. You might. And in that case, maybe don't watch an hour-long YouTube video. Maybe spend 3 minutes doing something that sparks your imagination, gets you thinking outside the box. You might even work with an approved AI tool, whether that's Gemini or ChatGPT. And you might say, hey, you're an expert in solving issues like this. Here's what I'm wrestling with. Help me think about 5 fun and inventive ways I might solve this problem without going crazy in the process. I'm being a little facetious, but you get the idea. So use your time wisely and don't hesitate to take a step back and just get outside of your comfort zone and your box to be a little bit playful, be a little curious, and think differently about your problem rather than just being in the zone of like, oh man, I got to figure this out right now. Okay. Second piece, pivot as needed, but not too early, right? One of the big mistakes I've made, again, I'm speaking from my role as a business founder, but it also applies to extension professionals as well, is oftentimes we don't give the solutions we come up with enough time to work. And so it's like, oh man, like, again, depending on your context, let's say you have 30 days or a week to figure something out. Too often, maybe you try something for a day and, maybe it's, I need to get a response from some other organizations to partner on this grant program or this project. And you send out a bunch of emails on Monday morning, Tuesday morning rolls around, you don't have any responses in your inbox. So what is your default? Well, in my case, at least historically, it's been, well, this idea stinks, or this project is terrible, no one wants to work with me, they all hate, and then of course it can escalate too. They hate me, or they're like, obviously they have 10 other priorities ahead of this one. When in reality, either A, they didn't check their email, B, it got lost in other projects they were working on, C, they're still formulating a response. The list goes on and on of other potentially much more realistic possibilities. And so it's important to give your idea time to work, right? When you plant a seed, generally speaking, it doesn't pop out of the soil and, get ready for harvest level corn, soybeans, wheat, cotton, whatever the next day, right? It takes a season. It takes care. It takes nurturing. And so be sure to invest in follow up, right? If you sent emails today, maybe a phone call tomorrow is the best way to follow up. Or maybe you need to give it a couple of days because it's a big issue. Again, if it's more urgent, maybe a text message or let's hop on a quick Zoom. You know, be open to the possibility that you'll need to pivot and come up with a different solution to get out of whatever corner you're in. But also don't start to jump ship before your idea has an opportunity, your solution has an opportunity to bear fruit. Number 3, set reasonable expectations, right? Again, if time is a big limiting factor or getting a bunch of people together to come up with something massive or creative is the issue, you can do a lot in a short period of time, but it's also important to set realistic expectations. Like, it may not be completely polished. It may not have every layer of detail or aspect that you desire, but doggone it, if you can come up with a minimum viable product that's going to check all of the boxes and get you further down the field. Again, I'm thinking it's fall, so I'm thinking of football season. Choose that, right? Embrace reasonable expectations, because what you don't want is to set yourself up for disappointment or inordinate amounts of stress because you're aiming here. And in reality, if you aimed here instead, sort of mid-range, you could still do a great job, get the impact you desire without stressing yourself out and aiming for something that's truly impractical given your parameters. Next, phone or text a friend, right? This could be someone within extension. This could be a family member, a friend, someone you trust, someone from your church or faith group or whatever the case might be, just to bounce around ideas. Again, not suggesting you betray any sort of confidentiality, not suggesting that you just call people to vent, although there are people in your life, I'm sure, who are very happy to listen to you vent and to say, hey, look, are you trying to solve a problem? Are you looking for my ideas? Or are you just looking for validation? And maybe that's a great way to approach the conversation, right? Really be clear. Are you looking for validation that you're in a predicament? Or are you looking for someone to bounce ideas off of to sort of give you their perspective? Or maybe just think about solutions with you, right? It could be any of those options, but you should be clear before you make that phone call or send that text. And then finally, it's important to bias toward action, right? Oftentimes when we're in a corner, we tend to sort of hunker down, think about the sky falling. Again, these are all very natural reactions, and I'm very empathetic to all of them, and they're not going to help you get out of the corner. So I hope this is helpful. The last thing I'll say is that I want you to think about this question, which is the next time you find yourself in a corner, what's your first move, right? It doesn't have to be anything fancy, and nor does the corner have to be catastrophic, right? But think about the next time you find yourself in a situation where you really don't know what to do offhand, what's your first move? So think about it. Send me an email. I'd love to hear from you, natebirt@extension.org. Thanks so much for watching. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.